All right. We're going to have a work session with our Department of Parks and Recreations. Shannon Nizal and Tim Hepler, our Director and Deputy Director of Parks and Recs. Shannon, I'm going to just turn this over to you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning. I'm sure the presentation will be popping up on the screen. There it is.
There we go.
There it is. Look at our brand new logo. Isn't it shiny?
Yeah.
Okay, so good morning, Commissioners. We're here today, again, Shannon Nizal, Parks and Recreation Director.
Tim Hepler, Deputy Director.
And we're here to talk a little bit about our Parks and Recreation strategic plan that we just completed in July of this year. This was a project that we had started early in the year in March, and were able to complete it in a fairly short time frame. So to give you a little bit of information, so we're here to talk about the results of our strategic planning process, as well as give you an overview of the goals and objectives that we were able to come up with as the conclusion of this project. So basically what the strategic plan is, it identifies our top priorities, and it's scheduled to be reviewed annually, and the complete plan will be done every 5 years. So it outlines our general management, assesses our business climate, addresses our goals and objectives, as well as outlines the resources that we have for the department. So as we were developing this strategic plan, we not only talked with staff about analysis in regards to what we're currently doing at the department, we also looked at some guiding documents that are already in existence, which includes the county strategic plan that was done by Economic Development, as well as the current comprehensive plan, and as well as our budget objectives and the adopted land preservation parks and recreation plan, which was adopted this past April. And again, this plan will be updated every 5 years. So the process, we reviewed all the documentation that I previously mentioned to make sure that everything that we were trying to do as a department was in line with the documents that we currently have as approved by the Board of County Commissioners, the Planning Commission, and our different programs that we already have, like the Land Preservation Parks and Recreation Plan is a document that is reviewed by the Planning Commission, also adopted by the Board of County Commissioners, and also then approved by the state of Maryland. So this is kind of our main guiding document that directs us in the direction that the citizens and the county wants to go in regards to land preservation, parks, and recreation.
Shannon, I don't know if you have that in front of you, but how much more land have we preserved here just of late? Because I know with one acquisition and the park, do you know how much more we've added?
Well, there's a couple that are still in the works. We haven't we haven't obtained the deed on a couple of parcels, but over the last year, if you include the offsite area A property as well as the Gatewood property and the Watson property, it's a little over 200 acres, about 250 acres in the last year or so.
Good.
And before you move on, just
Sure.
for the audience, just explain to them what SWAT stands for.
Absolutely, that was my next step to get
All right.
to.
Good.
So we also, as a staff, went through a SWOT analysis, which is basically our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this was an exercise that we, as a staff, went through prior to meeting in regards to developing our goals and objectives, because we wanted to make sure that we knew what everybody thought as what our strengths, our weaknesses, opportunities, and threats were. So as far as strengths goes, our top three were the staff that we have, the programs that we offer, and the facilities that we currently have. And then when we look at different opportunities, we see that facilities jumped on that again as one of the things that we have opportunities for improvement on, whether it's adding new facilities, changing some of the current facilities that we have, that sort of thing. Programming was also listed as an opportunity for new and improved programming, different types of programming to meet different needs of the community. And then also outreach and partnerships was also listed as an opportunity. When we talk briefly about weaknesses and threats, those are are interesting because where we see some of our weaknesses and threats are things that we're already working on. So some of the things that we had talked about as far as some of our weaknesses was our internal functions, making sure that we have policies and procedures for a lot of things that we do, and we're currently working on a lot of those and have been able to put a lot of those forward recently. Also something that has come up in facilities, again, in regards to what we have currently, and some of that had to do with having drainage or irrigation or lighting at some of the facilities. Those were mentioned as a couple of times as far as some of our facility needs. And then adequate staffing. I believe that a lot of the work that's done with Parks and Recreation is done a lot by seasonal and part-time staff rather than full-time staff. So we did have that added as one of the weaknesses when we polled all of our staff. And then threats, I think the top ones on there, again, facilities popped up on all of them because that's a lot of what we do is we run a lot of facilities. So you're able to bring up a lot of that in every aspect. Social economic issues was also brought up as a threat with the amount of children enrolled in our schools decreasing. That was brought up, as well as the number of people that go outside of the area for different things and more of a commuter community, that sort of thing. And then also work culture was also brought up, which is something that we're working on internally as well as a part of this process. So again, as we target the next 5 years, our goals and objectives really focused on those, on that SWOT analysis along with those guiding documents as well. So as we looked at those guiding documents, a lot of those have goals and objectives on their own right. So I listed a few of them here. I'm not going to read them off. But as an example, these were the goals in our Land Preservation Parks and Recreation Plan that was adopted by the Board of County Commissioners as well as approved by the state. And then as another example, our budget objectives that are included in our budget book annually. And these are also objectives that we looked at while we were creating our goals and objectives for this project. So as a summary of what we were able to do, we came up with 8 goals and 62 objectives. So this is going to be a tall task for us to complete in 5 years, 62 objectives, and none of them are small tasks. So, but they all of these objectives fall under these 8 goals. So our first goal is to meet present and future needs of the community, which we have 9 objectives. And as I go through the slideshow, you'll be able to see the different objectives that are within each of these goals. Enhancing our services and facilities, we have 12 objectives under that goal. Improves processes and efficiencies, we have 8 objectives. Develop collaborative solution, we have 6. Develop and engage citizenry, we have 8 objectives. Conserve, protect, and enhance natural resources, we have 7. Building our team, which is related to staffing, is 7 objectives. And then developing skills and competencies, we have 5 objectives. So again, I'm not going to read them all off. It'll take a while to go through them. But this kind of gives you an idea of what our process is and the objectives that we're going to be trying to achieve within the next 5 years. And a lot of these things are already items that are in process that we're currently working on or are very close to completion. For example, the complete a master plan development for properties for offsite area A and the Watson property. So we're already getting started on developing a scope and a bid for the offsite area A master plan. So those are things that are already in line to work on to complete those objectives. So we're not starting from scratch on all of them, so which is definitely a good thing. So this is the second part of our first goal, just to make sure everyone in the audience is able to read the slides with all of our objectives on there. But again, a lot of them are either related to each other or something that we're working on already.
Shannon,
Sir.
go back one.
Sure.
Go forward one.
Try it, there you go.
Develop and construct a clubhouse building and course restroom facilities at the golf course. You had a meeting, I guess it was last week or the week before. Did you have a good turnout for that concept of what people would like to see?
Yes, for that meeting, we had about 40 people turn out, and we also had 106 survey responses for that meeting. And ultimately, what it seemed like people were interested in were making sure that something was done out there for that facility, and the amenities that they were looking for. Basically, it seemed to boil down to, and I didn't bring a copy of the survey results with me, but the general consensus had to do with having a restaurant bar area, a pro shop, and having some sort of meeting space.
Okay, thanks.
So our second goal is enhancing our services and facilities. So some of these we've already started the process on, like, for example, the first one with establishing and utilizing a customer satisfaction survey. So that was something that we put in process this year, and we currently are receiving responses on that customer service survey and working with those responses on if there's areas for improvement or kudos to staff and that sort of thing. So we find that that's worked pretty well. It's something that we have on all of our email signatures. We have little business cards at all of our locations to let people know about this survey. It's on our website. And we're also looking at the opportunity to try and put some sort of kiosks at some of our higher used facilities so people can do the survey right there while they're at one of our facilities, which is something that's going forward. And this is something that we're going to be able to analyze on a regular basis to make sure we're meeting the needs of our customers. Then another set from our enhanced service and facilities. This goal had the most objectives in it because I think there's the most opportunities for needs in here, as facilities we saw was brought up a number of times in our SWOT analysis. So,
Shannon, I'm glad you brought that up. If you want to back up the all-year activities, I think it's huge. I think that's one of the biggest challenges because we are such a seasonal area. In the wintertime, we're about out of business. You know, and with all the rain we've had this year, the intense heat. So, I mean, that is going to be a challenge really for the next board. Something for somebody to be able to go inside, you know. And so, I mean, we've got a lot of outdoor things to do. But that is when it's raining, you know, when it's 100 degrees. So that's going to be a big challenge.
yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. Again, opportunities with some of these objectives that it's not just a one and done on some of these. They're overarching for a lot of different things. So some of the things that are already in process for that in particular is we're working on right now a design for a new concession and restroom area at Halloween Point Park. As a part of that project, we're looking to see what the options are for not having to winterize a portion of that restroom facility. So we have restrooms available that aren't the porta potties during during the winter.
Last year that was a big issue. That's right. There you go. Yes.
And then also when we look at the future of the new Harriet E. Brown Community Center, as we go forward with that process in future years, we'll be able to address a lot of those year-round needs for indoor activities as well with that facility. And again, with this particular goal, a lot of these things are currently already in the process. These three right here are actually close to completion, where we have the bids awarded for the specific projects. And Solomon's Boat Ramp in specifics will begin construction in October of this year.
Shannon, I know that's a state thing with the floating docks, and I don't have a lot of experience, but I saw one. Have you ever tried to navigate those things? I mean, they don't look stable. Are they more stable than what they look like? I mean,
they are. Basically with the floating docks, it's so as the water moves, you move. So when the water is higher, you have the same entry that you would if the water was lower. So rather, if you have a set dock in place, whether it's high tide or low
Sure.
tide, the dock is at the same location. But with a floating one, it moves with the tides, so it's easier for access and entry.
Because I know at the, the one down there at the bridge, I mean, the river sometimes gets moving. So I just kind of picture a lot of this. I mean, do you need your sea legs, or is it a lot more than,
It once you're on a dock like that, a floating dock type of surface, it's like when you're on a boat. For example, when you're on the boat, you don't feel it as much as you would see
Okay.
the boat moving if you were on solid
because as a
land.
spectator, I'm looking at it going,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I think it's Einstein's law of relativity. So when you're moving up and down and your reference point is moving up and down with you, you don't feel like you're moving. Just like if you're passing a car on the road,
Right.
it looks like the car you're passing is going backwards. Well, you know it's not. Similar phenomena, I think.
Correct.
I'll try it out with a bathing suit on. I don't think I'll do it with the suit.
There you go. So our third goal, which has 8 objectives, is improving our processes and efficiencies. And like I mentioned before, one of these, I think it's on the next one, developing a comprehensive policies and procedures manual with annual review. That's something that's really important to me and important to our department to make sure that we have all of our policies and procedures in writing and annually evaluated to make sure that we're working in the best interest of the county. So our fourth goal, developing collaborative solutions. So this has a lot to do with working with other people, working with other departments, working with outside agencies, and making sure that we're doing our best to meet the needs of the county by collaborating with different groups.
If you go back just 1 second, real quick,
Sure.
just explain to the public what a CAPRA accredited agency. What that
Sure,
is.
absolutely. So CAPRA is the Commission on Accreditation for Parks and Recreation Agencies. And this is through the National Recreation and Parks Association. And there are only 166 agencies in the United States that are accredited through this agency. So that's about 1% of all of the parks and recreation agencies in the country that are accredited.
So
That's a
this-
reason. Go ahead.
This accreditation, I was involved with the sheriff's office when it became accredited, and there were ungodly amount of objectives. Is it the same with Parks and Rec?
Yes, with this process, there's 151 standards that you're supposed to meet as a part of this accreditation process. It's over a 5-year span, so once you apply, you do what's called a self-assessment, and basically it's the department looking at all of these standards and saying, do we meet this standard or do we not meet this standard, and what is our evidence of proof of how we've met that standard. So one of the standards is having a strategic plan. Look, we have it. So that is part of the process to become accredited, and I've gone through the accreditation process with another agency, and I'm also what's called a CAPRA visitor, which is basically an auditor who goes to different parks and recreation agencies to assist them in accreditation. So I've had experience on both sides, so I definitely think this is an achievable goal for Calvert County, as there's only 3 other agencies in Maryland that are accredited.
Do you have to, does it expire, or do you have to reaccreditate every so often?
Every 5 years.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Sorry, we had a little technical interruption there. Has the feedback gone away? Okay, I think it was being, all right. So, Shannon, I think it's wonderful that you're seeking this type of accreditation for your department. I encourage you to continue in that path.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. So our 5th goal is developing an engaged citizenry. So that's basically getting more information and getting our residents and visitors more involved in parks and recreation and the decision-making process. So this involves, educating the public, more outreach to the public on the services and programs that we offer. A lot of times with Parks and Recreation, what I've found is we do a lot of great things, but not a lot of people know about it. So it's our job to make sure that people know about the great things that Parks and Recreation is doing, whether it's our facilities, our programs, and the things that we offer the community that are outside of playgrounds and ball fields. And this continues on the goal number 5. So a volunteer program is something that is also very important to the department as we try to garner our leverage between staff and our staffing needs with volunteer work. We do a lot with that with natural resources. We use a lot of Eagle Scout candidates for different projects within our parks, and our hope is to expand our volunteer program. Speaking of natural resources, goal number 6 is conserve, protect, and enhance natural resources. I know this is a big one within the county, especially within our land preservation, parks, and recreation plan in regards to land preservation and public water access, which are high on the list for the state and for the community when they participated in the survey that was put out for the LPPRP a few years back. So this is the second half of that one with a few more things that are going on with natural resources and being able to achieve this goal. And again, some of these are also currently in the works. So some of these objectives will be able to cross off the list fairly shortly.
Is the term meadow management protocol, I've never heard that term before. Is that a new concept? Is it one you created, or is that an existing type protocol?
I believe Karen Molinas
She's here. Karen, could you,
can answer that better than I.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I understand what it is.
Sure.
But
So I'm Karen Molinas. I'm the Division Chief for Natural Resources. Yes, managing meadows, there are specific protocols depending on what kind of animals or benefits you're trying to achieve. And the two main aspects that Natural Resources is interested in are the grassland birds. So a lot of it's producing nesting habitat that they prefer in open areas, as well as food sources. And then for pollinators, so making sure that there's appropriate nectar plants, as well as the host plants for butterflies and other insects. So
Good.
yeah, there are, and our staff have gone through trainings to look at the different methods that are appropriate for our needs.
Good, thanks.
That's the sort of
Okay.
thing that nobody knows. I mean, it's really interesting, but I mean, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you doing what you're doing? Because we're trying to attract certain creatures. Pretty interesting.
Right. When you look at nationwide, that there's a lot of a decline in bee habitat and those different type of pollinators, and you probably see the different things. If bees are gone, then this food source is going to be gone this many years later. So we're just a small part in trying to manage what we can with those type of things to make sure that we do have that habitat in the area, and that we're also teaching people about those different types of habitat in the area, which is part of the outreach part of things that we need to let people know about the things that we do and what we're able to accomplish as a department, and bringing that sort of advocacy to the community. So our goal 7 is building our team. And this is related to the staff of Parks and Recreation and being able to look internally at our best practices on hiring and expanding what our staff is able to do and their work culture that we have within the department. So a lot of that we've been able to work on within the department this past year in regards to leadership transparency. So a couple of things that I've done in regards to that is I send out a weekly this is what's going on in Parks and Recreation to the entire department. We also do directors roundtables where staff is able to come to me on a weekly basis, and we just meet and talk about what's going on. Last month, we started a shadowing program where I'm going out to our different work sites and working with staff for the day. So I know exactly what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. So this week I'm going to Cove Point Pool and Cove Point Park, and they're going to let me ride a mower. So I told them, oh boy, we're in trouble.
Oh, it's
Get
fun.
the liability insurance.
You'll like it. It's super fun.
So they're going to go through basically my first day at work and what they would go through with a regular employee for that process. So the training procedure and all of that. So it should be interesting. So, but those are some things that we've done to improve our transparency within the department and our communications. So this is a continuation on building the team, working with human resources on different initiatives, and also exploring different opportunities for our staff to volunteer within the community, to get them as a part of the community and have them be more known as a part of outreach as well. So last but not least is our 8th goal, which is developing our skills and competencies. So one thing that I want to pull out of here is the couple of acronyms that you see on there on that second bullet, which are provide more opportunities for staff to become CPRP and CPRE certified. So that's Certified Parks and Recreation Professional or Certified Parks and Recreation Executive. So these are certifications within Parks and Recreation. Just like an accountant would get a CPA, a Parks and Recreation professional would get a Certified Parks and Recreation Professional or Certified Recreation Parks and Recreation Executive certification. This process involves having going through a standardized test on Parks and Recreation management and continuing education every 2 to 3 years in Parks and Recreation management. So while we are working to advance the culture within the Parks and Recreation Department, my goal or our goal is to be able to enhance the professionalism of staff by getting them accredited as much as we can to increase that professionalism and have staff have the experiences in other areas that might not be their own, so it's more cross-training as well. And
Good.
that is it.
Shannon, I was confident when we stood up a new Department of Parks and Recreations a little over a year ago, and we interviewed you. I was confident that your leadership would be impactful, and I'm so pleased to see that this is the approach you're taking to get the new Parks and Recs department running, increasing the level of professionalism in the organization. Going through the kind of documentation and accreditation is a great track to be on. Please keep up the good work.
Absolutely, I appreciate that, but it's absolutely a team effort.
Sure.
We have a great team put together, and it's definitely not all me. They keep me in line and make sure that I'm doing what I need to do, and when there's things that I need to take care of, they're right on the ball, making sure that we're doing what we need to do. So a great big shout out to Parks and Recreation Department for the great work that they've done over this past year with these changes and the culture change that we've been working on. And everybody's been on board, and it's been great. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with Evan in his assessment, and I agree with you with the backing of your team and the folks at Parks and Recreation. You just do a really good job. It's a 24-hour-a-day job, to be honest with you. So thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. And
Shannon, one of the things that I would mention is that I didn't see any mention of the Parks and Recreation Board, the board, the Parks and
Advisory board?
Recreation Board.
Advisory board?
Yeah, the advisory board. I was on that advisory board the first year here, and I think they can be more involved than they are. The meetings that I went to, I mean, they were informative, but it was nothing where they had, to me, they didn't have a direct impact on your department. So you might want to look at how you can have those individuals on that board, because they're very interested in Parks and Rec and what you
Absolutely.
all do. And I mean, if you could find a way to get them more involved, the slide where we talked about the community involvement, maybe they could help in that aspect. But just think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We just actually redid their resolution on basically their bylaws for the board, which did a lot to make the board more flexible with meeting times and looking at different things. We added a representative from the Calvert Nature Society since we added natural resources into Parks and Recreation. So we're well on the way to improve the what they're able to accomplish as the advisory board
Good.
for the department.
Good.
Anybody else? Thank you so much.
Great,
Thank
thank you very
you.
much.
Thanks, Tim.
Don't talk so much, Tim.